guys can fit two. But it's a nice one. It just looks serious, but not like you guys can fight.
me kanaloa ulo ia lau koa me ka ie a e no mai nei ko kuahu e ia ka vai ola e vai ola no e no na ke a kuai kana hele ia la ia e ke ki ohu e ka ua kou ina kino malu I kala ni malu e hoi e ho ulu mai ana o laka I kona kahu o mako noa e o nau nai ka hala me ka lehua e halelehua no ia naka no e ka uno ia e ano inei e ali anei ho I o ka hiki mai a hiki mai no kou a hiki puno me ke aloha aloha e aloha e aloha e
e kuma mau I kuva e kuma mau e ku ikalana mau I kuva e kulana mau I kuva e kuva uki kuva ko e kuva mau kai u e
kana inui, ho'o mā koukou.
Ai, kana inui.
Kana hinui e me ka mahe o le ula ka huali'i. Makono po o hivi, kau kani ho palawa ma konui kai ka. Kai ke aki ke ali'i ka pue hie. Kana hinui e me ka mahe o le ula ka huali'i. Makono po o hivi, kau kani ho palawa ma konui kai ka. Ke aki ke ali'i ka pue hie.
Hei no kamehameha.
Mua!
Ke lei mai lau ka ula I ke kai. Ke malama o ni hau a malie. A malie pa ka inu mai. Ke inu mai lana hala o nau e I ke kai. No nau e ka hala. No puna ka waine. No ka lua no I ki lau e. Ke lei mai lau ka ula I ke kai. Ke malama o ni hau ua malie. A malie pa ke inu mai. Ke inu mai lana hala o nau e I ke kai. No nau e ka hala. No puna ka waine. No ka lua no I ki lau e.
Am I on? We pay respects with gratitude. We honor the late Michael Watanabe, who passed away on November 3rd, 2023. And the lei that we presented was over there for him. With gratitude and love, we honor and thank Mike's wife, Suzanne Watanabe, for her 41 years of love and devotion to Mike, and for her love and support for her family, AAD DAPS, Ohana, and many API community organizations and that she and Mike had supported. And this lei is for you.
Good afternoon, family. My name is Sandra Bryant, and I have the privilege of serving as your MC this afternoon. I am currently serving as a board member of ADAP, where I am the longest serving member with over 42 years. And I just turned 28. I am also recently retired from All People's Community Center, where I served for 40 years. On behalf of everyone here, I would like to thank Kaio Foundation for performing the opening ceremony for us. Kaio Foundation seeks to promote awareness and appreciation of Polynesian culture through educational programs and events like this. Thank you, Kaio Foundation, for being a part of today's celebration of life. I met Mike Watanabe in 1982, and there was an immediate kinship in that we both held masters in social work. Thus began a 40-year-plus friendship. Mike was not a selfish leader. He understood that his gifts should be shared with the entire community. He mentored many, including myself. He invited me to events, meetings, fundraisers, and introduced me to movers and shakers. We had our favorite restaurants to meet, fellowship, and discuss plans. Unfortunately, many of the locations no longer exist, like Mont Phuc Lo, New Moon, Taiping. I am not sure if it was because of me and Mike, but nevertheless, we are here today to celebrate my colleague and my friend. At this time, I would like to invite two individuals to lead us in an interfaith introduction. First, please welcome Pastor Louis Lewis, who is serving as senior pastor at LA Southern Baptist Church and is the Employment Access Manager at ADAP, overseeing all workforce development programs.
Hello, everyone. As I was thinking about today and what I would say, a celebration of life, I ran across a quote, and the quote says, "Life is a song, sing it. Life is a game, play it. Life is a challenge, meet it. Life is a dream, realize it. Life is sacrifice, offer it. And life is love, enjoy it." I wanted to add another part to that. Life is a gift, and we should celebrate it. So today we're celebrating one who has been such a blessing to all of us. As a mentor, as a friend, so many life lessons. And I want us to start this off right. So can we give a big round of applause for the life and the gift of Mike Watanabe. And while I'm here, before we bring Reverend Fukumoto, I want to say, Susie, we love you. So let's give some love. Come on.
Thank you, Pastor Lewis. I'm Reverend Ray Fukumoto from Save Our Seniors Network. I'm the Interfaith Director. First, I'd like to thank all who have made today's celebration possible, and it's wonderful to see all who have come to celebrate Mike's life. Now, for those people who do not know, in Japan, in the United States, before the Japanese Americans became more American, we used to say, "Itadakimasu" before each meal. Now, "Itadakimasu" is not saying grace. It's not a grace. What it simply means is to be grateful for the causes and conditions that made the meal possible. You know, for example, the food on your plate certainly didn't want to be on there. You know? Somebody had to grow it, raise it. Somebody had to, pick it, transport it, and eventually somebody had to buy it. And after that, somebody has to prepare it and serve it. Now, if you take any one of those out, you don't have a meal. So again, those are the causes and conditions that make it. This is why we express our gratitude in the words "itadakimasu." Now, in Japan, we also say it for when receiving something precious and valuable. Today, as we celebrate Mike's wonderful life, I would like to express my thanks to Mike for making this gathering possible. Of friends and families, the causes and conditions of this gathering is a gift we have received from Mike. For without him, today's gathering would not be possible. So to Mike, I would like to say, "Itadakimasu." To you have affected so many lives, making this gathering possible. And so if you would not mind, in celebration of Mike and before our meal, would you say "Itadakimasu" with me? Okay, I'll call it so that we're in unison. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Itadakimasu. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Pastor Lewis and Reverend Ray. Well, now we'll move to the portion of our program where we hear from several speakers who all knew and loved Mike. Each will share their unique perspective and hopefully give everyone a glimpse at the incredible person he was. First, I would like to welcome Ed Shioyazono Richter, and I apologize if I did not say it correctly. I was practicing though. Mike's nephew-in-law to share with us. Ed?
You just say Richter. Aloha. I'm Mike's nephew, and just one of the many and literally thousands of people whose life changed for the better from having known Mike Watanabe. And it gives me great pleasure to be able to give you a brief overview of the early years of his life. Mike was born in 1946 in Pa'uilo, Hawaii. Life in a small town was not easy, financially speaking, but it was slow, laid back, and informal. Family and quasi-family members were called names like downhill auntie and uphill uncle. And even after doing some genealogical research, Mike said he wasn't sure who he was actually related to by blood. One of Mike's many cherished memories as a child in Hawaii was riding bales of sugarcane down the sluice at the local sugar mill with his siblings, cousins, and friends, and they jump off just before the bales entered the shredder. He used to tell that story laughing at how they saw it as 100% fun and 0% risk. And you thought Gen Xers were risk takers. But some years later, Mike and his family relocated to Los Angeles, and adjusting to life in the big city on the mainland was not easy, especially having come from humble circumstances in a small village. He said that having to wear shoes all the time was particularly aggravating. Mike would also recall how, as newly transplanted children, he and his siblings were called pineapple heads, and they were teased for their Hawaiian pidgin accents by American-born Nisei and Sansei friends. But he would always add that to his ear, their mainland accents sounded like fancy English ladies having lunch. Mike graduated from Venice High School in 1964, where he excelled in gymnastics and served as president of the varsity Letterman's team. After serving in Vietnam, Mike earned his BA from Cal State Northridge and his MSW from UCLA. He began his career in substance abuse at ADAP during his field placement as part of his MSW coursework at UCLA, opting to work there full-time upon graduating in 1975. In recognition of his skill and passion, he advanced to the role of treatment director in 1980. And it was around that time that Mike met fellow ADAP employee and his future wife, Susie. Over the years, Mike would recall with great humility how fortunate and grateful he was to have met and married a smart, beautiful, kind, and good-hearted Japanese-American woman. And what sealed the deal was on their first date, Susie said she loved chazuke and tsukemono, Mike's favorite meal, and as a lot of you might know, the meal of the Japanese working class. Now, some of you may have heard that Susie was in ADAP's residential treatment program and that Mike was her counselor, and that's how they actually met, but that was not the case. That was actually an ongoing decades-long joke that Susie played on Mark DeAngelis, Mike's former executive assistant and very close friend, but she got a lot of laughs out of that one, so did Mike, and Mark, if you're here, Susie would like to publicly thank you. We all know that Mike was a fierce advocate for the Asian and Pacific Islander community, and at this point I'd like to share a personal example of this. In the late 80s and early 90s, I lived with Susie and Mike. Mike noticed that I would often flip through the obituary section of Frontiers, a weekly gay newspaper, in order to make notes of the memorial services of friends or acquaintances who were dying of AIDS or who had died of AIDS. "Do you ever see any Asian faces in that newspaper?" he asked. "No," I said, "this is a West Hollywood paper, and in West Hollywood, Asians are totally invisible," which was true at the time. Mike, always a careful listener and ready to transform thought into action, thereafter worked tirelessly to expand ADAP's umbrella of outreach services and advocacy to include LGBTQ Asian and Pacific Islanders, especially those living with HIV and AIDS. Mike was very close to his extended family of sisters-in-law, brothers-in-law, cousins, nieces, nephews, and their children, and he took special joy in visiting his many grandnieces and grandnephews. Uncle Mike is lovingly remembered as a patient teacher of automobile mechanics, carpentry, electrical plumbing, general human improvement, and maintenance skills. As a respected mentor, he could be relied upon to give, if asked, and sometimes if not asked, honest and wise counsel to help family members make reasoned and informed decisions about pivotal life events. At work and at home, Mike was unflinchingly generous with his time, his private space, and his encouragement and financial resources whenever needed, always with a view to teaching or reinforcing good judgment and personal responsibility. He took such great care to be thoughtful, direct, objective, and honest that his words of advice were worth their weight in gold and never second-guessed. In reaching out and connecting to help others during life's most challenging times, Mike stressed the importance of always staying the course and trusting that everything would fall into place. He led by example, having overcome his own challenges. Check yourself, he would say, because not being honest with yourself is part of the process of learning to be honest with yourself. And when you're not honest with yourself, you're just going to make the same choices. And if you do, those won't always be the best choices. And I know those words resonate with everyone here. He leaves a void in his family, at ADAP, and in the API community that can never be filled. But I know we can all take comfort in the fact that he also leaves an indelible, cherished imprint that will forever inspire and be a comfort to all those whose lives he touched. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. I'd like to introduce Dr. Herman DeBose, Professor Emeritus, California State University, Northridge Department of Social Work, and most importantly, Mike's friend for over 50 years. Herman?
First of all, let me say thanks to Susie for giving me this opportunity to say a few words regarding Mike Watanabe. And I agree with Ed, when I met Mike, it changed my life also. I met Mike in September of 1973, when we were both master's students of social work, and we did our internship together. As been said, Mike was at UCLA and I was at USC, and we were in the probation department working as probation officers right down on Washington between Vermont and Hoover. So we haven't gone that far. From the moment we met, Mike welcomed me, my wife, and our firstborn child. We had just moved to LA. My wife and I had served in the Peace Corps in Kenya, and USC offered an opportunity, and I came out to go to graduate school, and that's when I met Mike. Mike invited us, my wife and I, because we were new to LA, he invited us to his parents' house for New Year's Eve in 1974. And from that point on, whenever there was a celebration, Mike would check in and say, "Herman, do you have somewhere to go? If not, come and go with me." So we participated in a lot of their celebrations. Now, a lot of you know Mike really loved to play poker, and I didn't know how to play poker. But I would go over to Mike's house on Fridays, bring my $20, and I learned to play poker. And one of the concepts of poker is the concept of high and low. Now, for those of you who play poker, you know it's a simple concept. But if you've never played the game, you have no idea what it is. It took me about 3 or 4 years to figure out what high and low meant. We established a poker game where we met at least once a month. For the last 40 years, that poker game has been going on. And I'm not sure, but there may be some members of that poker game here today. The other thing that Mike took care of us in the sense, as has been said, he was very good with cars. And when our oldest daughter was trying to buy her first car, Mike grabbed her by the hand and said, "Let's go see this particular car." And he did all the things that a mechanic needs to do to make sure that that car would run and be sufficient. And the interesting thing, again, one night she was driving that car and her mother didn't want her to go somewhere. Right here on Adams Boulevard, she had a wreck and destroyed the car after about 6 weeks. But it was. When Mike and Susie got married, Mike asked me to serve as his best man. At that point, I realized that he saw me as a true friend, even though our backgrounds are very different. As you can see, I'm African American, born and raised in Wilmington, North Carolina, and had the experience of the Peace Corps. And where Mike was born in Hawaii, raised here in LA, and served in the Army and went to Vietnam. Our primary friendship has been centered on the desire, I think, to make the world a better place for those who are less fortunate than us. And we've done that through the core social work values, which I will just list, which is service, which Mike provided, social justice, which he was a champion of, dignity and worth of the person, that he always thought everybody was special, importance of human relations, and I think we can see by the turnout today that his impact on human relations, integrity and competency, and I know we all know he was competent. I am sure that these core values sustained him through his 40-plus years as he worked and led ADAP. Now, one of the shining points for me as a tenured faculty member at Cal State Northridge, I had the opportunity to nominate Mike for an honorary doctorate degree. And I called Susie and I said, I want to nominate Mike, but I need to find people to write letters of support. She said, call Pauline. Pauline will help you with that. I called Pauline, and Pauline gave me a list of individuals, and I wrote to them and said, we're trying to nominate Mike for an honorary doctorate degree. Would you write a letter of support? And we got tremendous output and tremendous support. CSUN awarded Mike the honorary doctorate degree for my belief based on his hard work and his dedication to making the world a better place. He will be missed but not forgotten. His legacy has been established and will endure the test of time. And at the end, I would say, love you, Dr. Watanabe.
Thank you, Herman. Our next guest is Grammy-nominated musician Jun Kuramoto, co-founder of the band Hiroshima. Most of you probably didn't know that Jun used to work at ADAP in the early 70s. Before Mike was executive director, before recording and touring with Hiroshima, before cell phones and computers. And now, here to perform a musical tribute, Thousand Cranes, to a very special friend, please welcome Jun Kuramoto. June, that was simply beautiful. Thank you so much. Our next speaker goes way, 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 way back to the very beginning of ADAP. Yeah, way, way back. As he was the first executive director. He has also served as the national director of the Japanese American Citizens League and retired from the Department of Justice Community Relations Department. He prefers to be known as the person who hired Mike and was the key catalyst to have Mike and Susie get together since he approved of Susie's hiring in the fiscal office. Mike and Susie worked on the same floor. Now, this little tidbit that I heard was that Elaine introduced Mike to Susie as she was taking her on a tour of ADAP, and it was like a Hallmark movie. Mike lit up with the brightest smile that no one had ever seen in their lifetime. Love at first sight. All because of Ron. Welcome, Ron Wakabayashi.
So I'll stay with the tradition. Hello, family. How often have you heard that? Hello, family. I wanted to first thank the people who organized this, Yoko and everyone, for picking up on sort of things that were, I think, close to Mike's heart, which is the Hawaiian theme, I think, that is captured, in the event today, right from the beginning. But Mike did it again. He got us all here again, and he's been gone for a few months. But his superpower was still to be able to bring us together, and he's done it again today. By your presence and our presence here today. We all do ADAP in different ways. I was part of a team of 6 people that did the initial design for ADAP, and I worked in admin for the early part. I'm even an honorary graduate of ADAP, which was one of my proudest recognitions. But, in the last 30 years, I've become the Hello Kitty guy. How can you tell that, right? And Dean knows that, like, around the holiday season, we would kind of load up and say, the truck's coming. And by truck, I mean semi-truck of product that we were distributing to the community. And ADAP was essential to that, and ADAP was a beneficiary to that. But I also need to say that, ADAP might have been a colossal failure, but for me. And that's because what was said earlier, we recognized that from the very beginning, there's something different about this Watanabe guy. He's always hanging around, and he's kind of just salivating about ADAP. It was kind of like he was born here. Like he was there. People who are early on will remember 2 animals that we had at ADAP. They had righteous names of methadone and turkey. And Mike goes back to that era of like being really part of the core founding of ADAP, because while he wasn't the first director, he was the first director. We had a small agency with high potential, with a lot of heart, but Mike took it to a whole different place. And one of the reasons that he was able to take it to the place is the other reason why I ought to be kind of recognized for all my contributions to ADAP. What was said earlier is that, Susie and Mike got together because, happened on my watch. And if I'm just really clear on that, if I just got full disclosure, the person that I think is the most incredible person on this planet is a woman named Jean, who I happened to meet at ADAP and became my wife. So we have a tradition of this, so that ADAP directors kind of, keep our eyes open for the very best of what's there. And Susie, okage-sama de, because of you. Because ADAP would have been, Mike would have been a very good director. He's a great one because of Susie. And I've learned that even more recently. But there's even a larger contribution that Mike's made to this community. And I'm going to go back to kind of the theme that I saw in this program, the Hawaiian theme. And I just want to call on, if you guys will recall, the great Hawaiian philosophers, Lilo and Stitch. You laugh, but listen to this out. If you go back and watch the movie later, and you'll find these things in the movie. They made a reference to ohana. Here's the quote. I want to get it right. Ohana means family. And family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. Lilo and Stitch. If I stay kind of the same in the literary genre, some of you may, if you recall your childhood, have a book called Little Prince. And in The Little Prince, one of the quotes there that kind of struck me that I think is appropriate for today is that, and the quote is, "It is only with the heart one can see clearly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." That's Watanabe's contribution. It isn't in the monuments, it isn't in the buildings, it isn't in the expansion of the program, but what he did was he baked into ADAP, the passion and heart of ohana, that none of us who are part of ADAP will ever be left behind, and none of us will ever be forgotten. And that's kind of the greatest tribute to what this agency is because nobody will be forgotten and nobody will be ever left behind. That's the heart of it. It's not the buildings and everything else. So Susie, do know that your old man did something very special. A lot of people can get buildings going, and expand programs, but to bake into the program what's heart. Now, I want to kind of just tie this off with just saying, going back to Lilo and Stitch, because I want to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting. But I grabbed 4 quick quotes out of the movie. But listen to these. Lilo and Stitch. Number 1, sometimes you have to fight for the family that you choose. Number 2, change is inevitable. It's how we adapt to that matters. 3, just because you're small doesn't mean you can't do big things. And there's more, watch the movie, but the last one I selected was, sometimes the people you need most in your life are the ones you didn't ask for. So pay attention. The spirit of ohana will always be with the ADAP program. I can imagine as we're talking this, I could see Mike doing his side eye, because he did do that, and that smirk, and he would do that just before he had something to say, right? We remember that. But, today is the day that, while there's understanding, and one of the reasons for it is grief. There is grief. It's a price that we pay for having known and having benefited from the life that Mike gave us and shared with us, and that Susie shared with us. And if you think about it, it lives on, because we are the legacy. We in this room are the legacy. We carry that forward. We are the ohana. We're family. So, last words. Don't lament that he's gone, but let's celebrate that we had him. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Now I would like to bring up ADAP's current CEO and longtime staff who worked alongside Mike for over 30 years, Dean Nakanishi.
I didn't realize till just now that I followed the tradition. I got my wife at ADAP too, as the CEO. Good afternoon, family. To simply put it, ADAP is Mike, and Mike is ADAP. I plan to cover, since I began at ADAP after the 1990s, so I'm going to start around that time at ADAP. Mike often talks a lot of shit about the Republican Party, especially in his later years. However, I wanted to talk about, he always said that if it wasn't for Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan for their crackdown campaign and DARE program in the 90s, ADAP might not be where we're at today. I consider these years the ADAP expansion years. ADAP's outpatient expansion doubled ADAP's funding around this time. We were able to purchase lease space in the Santa Barbara Plaza, known as our MLK offices. Mike was very proud of our development of our women and children's program called Special Deliveries. We served nutritional food for breakfast and lunch. We were protecting the children and giving these women a safe haven to heal. Specifically, this program had ideas like acupuncture. Mike felt that Special Deliveries was one of the most efficient programs servicing the community that ADAP ever created. In 1998, Mike and Daisy were able to score a U.S. Department of Labor grant that basically created ADAP's Employment Access Unit. Mike always believed that employment is a critical part of the recovery process. Today, employment services represents about ADAP's 25% of funding, including nursing, financial services, energy, technology, veterans, reentry, and even small business. Out of the outpatient expansions in the 2000s, Mike had a new political project when the state of California introduced Prop 36 measures to reduce the serious prison system by mandating drug offenses to enter treatment. Mike specifically went to James and asked him to run this program. Even though Prop 36 policies mandates are no longer supported, we have specific judges in Long Beach and Inglewood that still support our efforts with the mantra of treatment over jails. So next, let me talk about Mike's success with community organizing prevention. In my early tutelage with Mike always explained to me that 50% of treatment dollars should be, I emphasize should, go to prevention dollars and education. However, prevention dollars are usually small and carve-out dollars from public health. You have to spend energy and resources to fight hard for these funds. Throughout Mike's history, I estimate we averaged about 25%, but recently we're closer to 40% with the expansion of harm reduction in housing. In the 80s, ADAP developed a gang prevention combining motorcycle program, otherwise known as NIPM. These services actually grew into a unit of their own. Jose, one of the kids from this mini bike program, will speak later today, but this program partners with LAPD, the City of LA, juvenile halls, and local public schools. For over 30 years, Mike fought for funding to do outreach services in the South Bay and Long Beach community for the Vietnamese and Cambodian community. Though Mike's advocacy, ADAP became one of the first agencies to support sterile needle exchange programming by taking advantage of the political climate developing HIV/AIDS services. Mike saw that needle exchange as a way to develop personal relationship with addicts and hoped to give them a second chance at recovery. Due to the resistance of that program in the community, Mike had an outreach team that worked mostly undercover. Mike took the heat from any complainers in the community, that school of thought today. That school of thought today became the current philosophy in response to the alarming fentanyl overdose crisis that is happening today. Today, harm reduction and homeless services represents around $3 million of ADAP's agency funding today. With regards to residential treatment, Mike started as a residential staff and wholeheartedly believed in ADAP's social model structure where the addict healed each other as a family. Even as a CEO, Mike was a counselor to so many people and so many people in this room. When you look around today, there are so many folks here from recovery and know that Mike played a significant role in their lives. Mike and Susie made it a point to be at every ADAP graduation for our clients over the years. I think Mike would appreciate me mentioning the legacy of him maintaining traditions at ADAP, and there's so many of them. For example, the community Thanksgiving party, Showtime, Mochitsuki, Lunar New Year, Cesar Chavez, MLK celebration, the Staff Appreciation Day, annual board dinners, all staff meetings every Monday of every month, the first Monday of every month, Veterans Days, annual pluses and wishes, Team AMP, our Trim a Tree event, the Lotus Festival boat race, and the annual $10 Secret Santa gift exchange. Mike ran a tight ship at ADAP. Budgets due every quarter, directors meeting every Tuesday, monthly reports every month, AP approval every Wednesday, and my meeting every Monday on the dot. Mike met with almost all the directors weekly. Mike will also remind me that ADAP is part of an evolution of API organizations to serve the community. He would explain that the future is to have as many minority-based community organizations as leaders as we can. Mike spent a portion of his time helping smaller nonprofits, whether it was supporting their board, training other leaders, being a fiscal agent, providing space. These agencies were also like his own children. Mike treated the ADAP staff as his family, no matter if you were a new staff member or worked here for many years. He raised so many of us to be community leaders we are today. We all know the community comes first, and we have a responsibility to pick up the phone and answer the call. After working side by side with Mike for so many years, I know Mike is a grinder. I've seen him come in every day, work hard. He's an Iron Man, tough as nails, and one of a kind. To say the least, there is nobody like Mike. Mahalo, Mike, for all you've done for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Dean turned the pages, so forgive me. I'd like to welcome our next speaker, Nick Nakatani, a member of a former organization known as the Yellow Brotherhood and a West Side lifer.
Good afternoon. I know many of you are probably asking, who is this guy and what is his connection with our beloved Mike Watanabe? When I was first asked to speak, truth be told that I asked myself the same question. And I say that because I never worked for Mike. The two of us never did lunch together. I never fished with a brother. And other than knowing that Mike worked at ADAP, I didn't and still don't know where Mike and Susie lived at. And so therefore we never even exchanged Christmas cards. And then I realized that I'm not here to talk about my own personal relationship with Mike, but I am supposed to talk about the people who I represent with and who I am part of, and how Mike Watanabe build a bridge, and using a fishing term, how he reeled us all in. How the story goes is as such. In the 1960s and early 70s, communities of color were on the rise and being organized and serviced by grassroots organizations. This was taking place here, there, everywhere, locally, nationally, and even internationally. We were making waves. We was rocking the boat to the existing order. Here in Crenshaw, we had a strong presence of Asian Americans, young activists, students, workers, street people, warriors, all serving the people. We believed, practiced, and strived for major systemic change within our lifetime. We were part of a revolutionary movement that was taking place throughout in third world communities throughout the nation. Well, Uncle Sam couldn't and wouldn't allow this threat to its existing establishment. It realized using such tactics as COINTEL, mass incarceration, even assassination of movement leaders wasn't enough. So it devised a plan. Why not just buy off the movement? In 1972, when ADAP became federally funded entity, many, including myself, viewed it as working for the enemy, no longer answering to the people, to the community, but answering to the man. Many, our people, were no longer viewed and treated as brothers and sisters, but were now merely clients. One of the nicer terms used to describe these agencies for us at this time was being co-opted. So you could see at the inception of ADAP, many of us were not fans. That for myself, I carried this belief for decades. So I'm going to fast forward to the year 2009, where I sat at the same table with Mike Watanabe, because a grassroots organization that I belonged to called the Yellow Brotherhood was being co-honored with ADAP for a community service award held by at the annual Nisei Week banquet. It was there that Mike asked me if I knew a brother by the name of Ronnie Nakashima. Hearing Ronnie's name threw me for a loop, and I told Mike, Ronnie died in prison in the 90s. Mike then handed me a letter that was recently written to ADAP from Ronnie, which asked if ADAP would vouch for his residency at his upcoming parole hearing. It turns out that back then Ronnie didn't die, but he did suffer a massive stroke that rendered him wheelchair bound. Back in the day, Ronnie was a member of our organization. He was always respectful and straight with us. Within his youth, he made a bad decision, which resulted in the loss of the majority of his adult life. After receiving the letter, 3 of us from the neighborhood drove up to Vacaville to visit Ronnie. The visit was eventful. Ronnie was still the Ronnie as how we remembered him. We were the first visitors that he had in 30 years. And remember, though, we thought he was dead. So on our drive back to LA, we decided that we were going to support Ronnie however we could to get him back home. When Mike heard about our intent to support Ronnie, immediately he offered ADAP support. Unfortunately, even with our assistance, Ronnie was denied parole, with the parole board setting his next hearing date in 3 years down the line. So for the next 3 years, the newly formed Ronnie Nakashima Support Committee met weekly using ADAP as its headquarters. ADAP expanded its facilities, office equipment, supplies, people power, and most importantly, its commitment to this endeavor. In October 2013, Ronnie was granted parole. It took a arduous community effort with ADAP playing a major role. Part of the determination by the parole board was ADAP's name recognition and offering residency for Ronnie upon his release. Today, 11 years later, Ronnie is still with us and a valued member in our community and still resides in the ADAP residential home. And I know in my heart, if Mike was here today, he would want to tell Ronnie, who I know that's out here somewhere, that he admired and respected your inner strength, fortitude, and from Ronnie to you, from Mike to you, Ronnie, that much love and stay strong. During this, actually, Ronnie is a living testament to Mike's belief in taking care of our own. Throughout this process, Mike's leadership was always low-key. He contributed, but never exerted a posture or position of importance, and he blended into our collective effort. For myself, I witnessed what Mike termed ohana. I met and worked with the ADAP staff and felt their collective unity in fulfilling their mantra, people need people. Under Mike's watch, I saw how ADAP adult and youth programs provide a viable alternative to primary people of color from incarceration and or living in the streets. ADAP has trained mental health counselors, offers job placement, participates in community events and outings. These are a few of their Serve the People services. Most impressively, these services are operated by caring staff that work for more than a paycheck. I realize that if a program such as ADAP are operated in the spirit of ohana, with its primary intent of serving the people, then its federal funding is not a handout. Rather, they are returning money that belongs to our community that we have more than earned throughout our collective history. I call it reparations. The same type of reparations that the U.S. government paid to the Japanese Americans for their unjust mass incarceration during World War II, and the same type of reparations that is owed to Black Americans for 400 years of systemic oppression dating back to slavery. I realized that if I personally liked and respected Mike, then the same affinity must be extended to ADAP, because ADAP and Mike Watanabe are one of the same. In closing, finally, the late Chairman Mao once said, "Everybody is capable of change, but some people have to die first." Mike, I thank you for creating bridges to bring our communities closer together, and for myself, for helping me change my outlook before I die. Mike, thank you for your service, and peace, my brother.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for the education as well. Now I would like to introduce Yvette Enrique, a graduate of ADAP's TC residential unit.
Good evening, family. You all know my name, and I am a direct product of ADAP's TC. My life changed and my family was saved in 2013. For me, thank you. For me, Mike was more than the CEO of ADAP. He has been a mentor, a role model, and most of all, an inspiration. Mike has been a driving force for me in my transformation from being an addict for 23 years to where I am today. As a TC alumnus, I would like to share just a few things that I will forever hold dear in my memory and heart about Mike. One of those memories of Mike that I will always admire and cherish is the times that he attended most of the TC holiday dinners. For the first part of my life, TC life, I was the kitchen foreman, leading most of our holiday dinners. It was an incredible honor to be able to showcase my leadership skills to the CEO of ADAP. I did not realize then that a man of his stature could be so involved with the clients. Mike was approachable and knew us by name. I felt immensely proud when he greeted me by my name. From then on, I knew that was the kind of leader I aspired to be. Another fond memory is meeting Mike and Susie under the big red balloon at the LA Marathon finish line in Santa Monica for several years. As the CEO, Mike cheered us on, ensuring each participant crossed the finish line. His notable fundraising efforts one year as a Big 5K participant were not only impressive, but also a testament to his commitment to making a positive impact. He might not have been the quickest, but he sure was a top fundraiser. Mike Watanabe's legacy is a testament to the power of compassion, determination, and genuine care. Though he may no longer be with us, the impact of his work and the positive changes he inspired will continue to resonate. May his memory serve as a source of inspiration as we carry forward the torch in the fight against addiction. Rest in peace, Mike Watanabe. Your legacy lives on in the hearts of those you've touched, and your contributions will forever echo in the fight against addiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Now I would like to introduce Mr. Jose Esqueda, the Director of Youth and Family Programs, who will also be celebrating 35 years at ADAP this June. I don't know if you all have picked this up, but there is a theme about 25, 30 years, 35 years, 40 years. There is something special about ADAP. Jose?
Good evening, family.
Good evening.
I first met Mike Watanabe back in 1985. I was 15 years old, and I met him at his famous poker game night at his house. How did I get there? Well, as a young kid, I got into some trouble, and my Nina, Lisa Javier, had a friend named Ruby at ADAP, and we visited ADAP once or twice, and we got invited to the poker game. I didn't know how to play poker either. But I learned, and it was a fun evening with Mike, not knowing that I'll be employed at ADAP 4 years later. But that was my first time I met Mike. When I was hired at ADAP as a part-time youth worker, I was hired to serve for the Nippon program, the National Youth Project using mini bikes at the time, which was a diversion and gang intervention program. Me having experience in gang activity, I was hired, and Mike asked me to not only run the Nippon program or be part of the Nippon program, but also engage and work with the local gangs in the community, which I did. Now, working at ADAP was not easy for me in the beginning. I was the youngest staff ever at ADAP. I was just right out of high school and going to college. And I remember the first interaction I had with Mike at ADAP was not a good one. You see, I showed up to work wearing a Corona t-shirt. Those were in at the time. And he caught me in the hallway and he talked to me about that shirt. So he lifted me up, or in other words, he scolded me on that. And so that was that. The second interaction I had with Mike at ADAP was not good also. I was wearing a marijuana leaf earring. Now, I guess he didn't like style. I was just in the moment wearing my clothing that I usually wear, but that quickly changed. But those scoldings really took effect on me, and I avoided Mike for the rest of the year. Whenever I saw Mike coming down the hallway, I ran the other way. And that worked for me for a very long time. For a very long time. I didn't have to deal with Mike. And then I got promoted to full-time. I'm like, oh, I got to be there 8 hours a day now. And man, I was scared to bump into this guy. But he was one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I worked at ADAP for 35 years now. And now, whenever he would come into this office, I was always scared. I think many of us who work at ADAP were scared to meet with Mike. And one of the first meetings he called me in, I never wanted to meet with him, and I never met with him. But when he called me to his office, I was really scared to go to his office. But he just wanted to congratulate me and tell me what a great work I've been doing, keeping our gang youth in our program and making it so successful. Although I remember clearly that when I was a counselor, managers' meetings were always long. They were like 2 or 3 hours long. And every time the meeting ended, managers would always walk with their head down as they left the meeting. And sometimes I would always hear yelling. So that scared me even more. And I never wanted to be a manager or a director there. That would stress me out. Meeting with Mike weekly for 2 or 3 hours? No, thank you, not for me. And yet in 2008, he made me a manager for the youth and family programs. So now I had to meet with Mike weekly at managers meeting, and we had to meet with him one-on-one. And everyone warned me about Mike's meetings. They said, be prepared, have an agenda ready, don't ask too many questions, and always give him answers. Never say, I don't know. You always have to have an answer. Well, I was prepared. I studied my budgets, I studied my programs, and I read all my contracts. I was ready to meet with Mike for the first time as a manager. I walked in, knocked at the door, I walked in. We sat down, he says, have a seat, I'll be right with you. During our first meeting, We didn't even meet on my agenda. We just talked about cars. I drove a 626 Mazda, and he had one too, so we had something in common. So that's what we talked about, is the cars and how it runs and what I did to it, how I could fix it. We didn't meet on any of my agenda items. But I was ready. And, you know, Mike taught us a lot. He taught us how to be on task, how to be prepared for anything. He would take me to City Hall, and I would watch him walk the halls and work the room. He would take me to city meetings, county meetings, and he would do the same thing. He would take plenty of business cards and talk to everybody, all the board members, all the city council. And people knew him. He taught me how to construct a budget from scratch and how to get information I needed from fiscal in order to create that budget. Mike was my coach, and he guided me throughout my career at ADAP. He worked very well with the managers individually. He knew every single one of us to the T. He dealt with each of us with uniqueness, and he handled each of us as well individually. But he also knew how to push our buttons. He was very intelligent and smart, witty, but also very kind. His impact goes beyond our community. His impact and work was felt throughout the city and the county of Los Angeles. Everywhere I went, they knew about Mike. Oh, say hi to Mike for me. He mentored many and gave many of us opportunities to work at ADAP and become mentors ourselves. To many of the managers here in the team, he was a mentor, a friend, a coach, and a great co-worker. I will always honor and cherish Mike's teachings and always be grateful for the opportunity to be all I could be at ADAP. Thank you.
Our next speaker needs no introduction. It is indeed my privilege and honor to welcome our mayor, Mayor Karen Bass, the City of Los Angeles.
Good afternoon, everyone.
I have a pause for you. The Honorable Karen Bass.
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry.
You kind of missed our beginning. No, you stay right there. Stay right there. We welcome you, Honorable Mayor Karen Bass, to Mike's celebration of life, and we mahalo you for the long-time friendship that you had. We, along with the Ka'io Foundation, thank you for your dedication in helping those in need in the city of LA, and wish you good health and strength and continued success. And in the Hawaiian way, we give our aloha through leis. So this one is for you. And I need to add, do you remember when you first went to office and you went to a summer party, or it was an event, she never received a lei before.
Right.
I was the one that made that.
Okay.
And lo and behold, God works in mysterious ways. I get to make one for her and actually get to see her. So this is for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this. This is very, very beautiful and certainly reminds me of of Mike? Well, as Sandra said, we're all on a theme of the years. Well, for me, it's 34. I met Mike 34 years ago, and I was listening to Nick talk. Nick, where are you? I was listening to you talk because, of course, you brought back memories. When I met Mike, I was transitioning out of some of those same organizations you made reference to. And I think that our journey was similar. Was similar in that during that time in the 80s and coming into the 90s when very bad policies were being planned that we ultimately called mass incarceration. And I was active in the anti-apartheid movement at the time. But seeing what was happening in the community, I felt that I had to do something different because it was crack cocaine at the time. And I know Mike, coming out of as a Vietnam War vet, and how addiction hit that population. And I remember forming Community Coalition, and I remember the pushback I got because we took money from the man. And I was willing to do that because our community was suffering so much. And Mike met me at that time and saw what I was struggling with. I wanted to start an organization. I really didn't know anything about addiction except for the fact that it was devastating the community. And I certainly didn't know anything about starting a community-based organization. But Mike kind of tapped me on the back in his very calm, way, very humble, and kind of set me straight and told me what I needed to do to form Community Coalition. And he was a bridge and a guide and a mentor for me because I didn't know anything about that world of social services, world of the county, the contracts, all that kind of stuff. I just jumped into it because it was a problem. And I was so appreciative that he was there to be a guide. But, if you look at his legacy, and I know everybody's here because they know his legacy, he raised so many leaders, Asian, Black, white. He was there because he understood the need in the community. And I know that he worked his entire life to build on the foundation of ADAP. And I also know that ADAP was the center that I guess was the incubator for many other organizations that grew out of ADAP and that helped to build a whole network and foundation of social service agencies to help the Asian community, but again, was always welcome to others. I remember organizations like Storefront and the work that went on there and how a lot of activists who had been involved in the revolutionary movements at the time, now we might refer to them as social justice movements, but we're making that transition into another way to provide services. And I know that after I was at Community Coalition for 14 years and then was making another transition, which was into elected office, and continued to work with Mike, and he continued to mentor me in a whole nother way, which is, okay, now that I'm doing this, how do I, in another role, help organizations like ADAP in a way where I could help either on policy changes or funding? And so we continued to work together when I was in the State Assembly. And when I went on to Congress at that time, a lot of the, especially the substance abuse organizations, were really going through a terrible transition that led to a lot of the funding and the programmatic changes that caused a lot of the organizations to fold. But ADAP was able to survive that time period. And I know he talked to me and encouraged me. He was also a leader with all the other substance abuse organizations too, and we met to try to figure out how can we keep that foundation alive. But going into Congress, when the Republicans took over, they were actually dead set on taking health care away because they wanted to destroy Obamacare. And then, I worked and I was there for a number of years, and then coming back home where my life has come full circle to now be here and to be able to address the problems, the same problems from 34 years ago, but to be able to be in the catbird seat and actually make some concrete change, of course, I go back to Mike and say, okay, I'm here now, what do we do? How do I contribute to ADAP? What is it I do? So, of course, I called him right away, and we said, well, now, you know, Biden is in, maybe we can help fortify the substance abuse organizations. And so I called him up and asked him if I could bring Secretary of Health and Human Services, Javier Becerra, to ADAP, because if ever I'm going to bring somebody, I'm going to bring him to ADAP. And I said, you know, maybe now we can be able to make that change. Little did I know that we would lose him so soon. And I do have to say, though, that one thing I feel good about is that I did have the opportunity to tell him to his face the difference he made in my life. I was invited, he invited me to go to his retirement. Susie, you know, I was there and saw you. It might have been one of the first times I had met you. I know periodically over the years. But I did have an opportunity to say to him in front of everybody how deeply I appreciated him, the contribution he made to me by embracing me and helping me to show me the way. I didn't necessarily know, though, what Nick said, and it's just a coincidence in terms of that part of my life when I was involved in other types of organizations. I'm not surprised, but that Mike and I had crossed that path as well and had some of those same relationships. So we might have lost him in his physical form, but the impact that he's had on all of our lives will go on and on and on through generations. And I was just honored that I had the opportunity to come here today and once again share the impact that Mike Watanabe had on me. Thank you, and my heart goes out to you, Susan.
Thank you again, Mayor Bass, for being with us today. Our final guest is Nancy Sekizawa, AKA Atomic Nancy. She is a retired certified addiction specialist, drug and alcohol counselor consultant at ADAP and has worked in the field for over 37 years. Nancy has also been a performing artist representing the Asian Pacific Islander community since 1969.
Good evening, family. Good evening. Okay. You know, I want to say this. This is a song that I wrote when I was in June's band. When I didn't even know how to drive yet. And because of the roots of being Japanese American was really important while I was in this band. I just want to say that for Mike, he always talked about, you know, just make sure, you know, you were the last Asian, Japanese American to be a counselor at ADAP before I retired. And I know Susie used to come to my gigs, and also Mike, they used to come to the Obons, and I used to be there, and I would perform. And see, I still remember those things. Those are the things that are really meaningful. And with Susie, I would see her and Mike over at the bingo parlor over at the Obons and have lunch. And, you know, it was just really cool to see, you know, somebody like Mike and Susie just come over and be part of the community. And that's what it's about. That's what it's about. And that's what ADAP is all about. And even though I'm retired, I still work as a consultant because it's really a meaningful job. And at this time right now, where everything is just really increased in terms of mental health and everything else, you know, I just have my heart still with the clients because that's how I stayed alive, because they fed me and I'm able to teach. So with this song, the song is called Lands of the Rising Sun. The lands of the rising sun, that is my home, east of the moon. Flowers are made of gold. You can join me and listen and hear me sing. Oh, the lands of the rising sun. Taiyo no deru kuni, それは私の家。月の東の金色の花。さあさあみんなで聞きましょう、歌えましょう。太陽の出える国。Rest in power, Mike.
Thank you, Nancy, for such a powerful and beautiful performance. I'd like to thank you all for being here this evening and joining us in the celebrating the life of Mike Watanabe. Susie, thank you for sharing him with the rest of us. He is loved and he is missed. And we are grateful to you and to the family for allowing us to have this public memorial today. In September, I asked Mike to speak at my retirement celebration, and I'm so pleased that he was able to share that night with me. A few weeks later, we were together at Showtime, and so the news of his passing was really, for all of us, unexpected, but it meant so much to me to have had that time with him in September and October. Mike's legacy of being a mentor, a visionary, a passionate advocate for social justice will live on in the lives of those who crossed his path. And so I say, I love you, my friend, and I will forever carry you in my heart. To close out tonight's event, I'd like to welcome Elaine Yoko Takahashi, to share remarks on behalf of Susie and the family. Elaine is Susie Watanabe's family member, first and former ADAP Administrative Director and current president of Save Our Seniors Network. And Save Our Seniors Network is an all-volunteer community organization that advocates bilingual and culturally competent programs and services for seniors in facilities and advocates for health and housing equity for seniors. Mike and Susie are active supporters of SOSN. Elaine?
Hello, everyone. One of the reasons I'm sitting down in the pews and not up here with the speakers is I lost my speech. So I was scrambling around looking for it as the speakers were on the stage. And who would have the speech was Susie Watanabe sitting on my speech, keeping it warm. So it goes to show that she always has my back. I've known her since she was 13 years old. And yeah, she's always got my back. She helped Save Our Seniors Network to sew, teach us how to sew these happy coats for Save Our Seniors Network, which is kind of a PR piece, but they're really beautiful and they're very warm. Thank you very much, Susie. And Mike is always at our Save Our Seniors Network Kancha Obon that memorializes and honors the 115 seniors that died of COVID in the Cato facility. It's the highest COVID deaths in a skilled nursing facility west of the Mississippi. And we're calling for investigations on that. Mike was a real strong supporter, Susie also, along with Judy Chu and several congressional members. I'd like to just say on behalf of Susie and all the family members, we'd like to extend our gratitude and appreciation to all who took the time to join us today at Mike's Celebration of Life. And Susie wants to also thank you for your patience in waiting for the right time for this day, since there were many factors involved that made it really difficult to schedule this particular time and this particular celebration. A warm thank you is extended to Mayor Karen Bass for taking time out from your incredibly busy schedule to join in Mike's Celebration of Life. Susie appreciated the moving words of condolence, support, the honor and recognition extended to Susie and ADAP in Mike's memory from you and the LA City Council members. Thank you very much. Susie and the family would also like to thank the ADAP Ohana, sitting all over here, and the many kind and generous family and friends for the outpouring of support and good wishes. And flying from the mile-high city of Denver, we're joined today, Susie's family and older sister, Kim Morehouse. Thanks for flying out, Kim, and also helping to take care of Susie. And also her daughter, Nanami Sarah Morehouse. Thank you for flying in this morning and joining us. Nephew Ed Shioyazono Richter, who spoke so eloquently earlier, flew in from New York. He's here on stage, along with his husband, Brad Richter, somewhere in the back, with their beautiful children, Ozzy and Maisie. My son, Sumiji Takahashi, who's right next to Susie, who's also Susie's nephew, Sumiji Takahashi, and his wife, Hosiel, and my grandson, Zen Takahashi, also here, who is Susie's grandnephew, are present in joining today's celebration. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. A special thanks to the Holman United Methodist Church and their staff for helping to make this all possible. And a big shout out to the hardworking ADAP staff and board of directors, and also Save Our Senior Network board members, David Monkawa, Reverend Ray Fukumoto, who's here on stage, Dr. Kensaku Nakayama and his son Kendall, Doris Hasegawa, and Kathy Suzuki, who all continue to help behind the scenes for today's celebration. There have been abundance of flowers, gift baskets, food drop-offs, emails, cards, and voicemail messages from many of Mike and Susie's friends and ADAP's Ohana, ADAP's family. The love and support has helped to sustain Susie's strength and spirit. For that, she is deeply grateful during this time of healing and tragic loss. Celebrating Mike's life and friends and family today has been very special and uplifting for Susie and the family, which we are forever grateful. And lastly, Susie and the family deeply appreciates and value the assistance and friendship provided by the ADAP CEO, Dean Nakanishi, here on stage, and also managers Paulina Hong, Aris Tubadeza, and Pastor Lewis, who helped plan today's celebration. And with that final thought, I'd like to turn over the mic to Pastor Lewis, who will share some closing remarks. Pastor Lewis?
Moments matter and people matter, and we all know that Mike mattered. And right now, we're going to bring Reverend Fukumoto, who's going to come and give our final remarks. But somewhere, somebody, y'all know I'm a Baptist pastor, and I've been trying to be cool, but somewhere, somebody is lifting the roof for a basketball game. And I think we ought to be able to lift the roof one time for Mike Watanabe. So if you don't mind, can you just help me lift the roof for Mike Watanabe? Oh, come on.
Still clapping. Thank you, Pastor Lewis, for your words for Mike. You know, I actually conducted Mike's funeral. And during Mike's funeral, we have what they call the Homyo Juyo. Basically what that is, it's conferring on Mike a Dharma name. It usually consists of 2 Chinese characters. These 2 Chinese characters were decided by Susie and myself with Elaine Consulting. Now, the meaning of this is really trying to reflect as much of Mike's character as possible in these 2 characters. The first character that we chose is J-I, taken from the word indicating mercy and compassion. The second character we chose is Kyo, or teach and faith. So Jikyo carries a meaning of a teacher with or of mercy and compassion. We felt this really reflected Mike's character. Mike was a mentor who shared his need of compassion for all, especially those in need. A leader who touched countless lives, creating a living legacy through his 77 years of life. I only met with Mike a few times with Susie in person, but the legacy he has established in life is self-evident by the people gathered here today to celebrate his life. As we celebrate Mike Watanabe's life and how he has touched so many through his compassionate sharing of his knowledge and experience, his life was one shared selflessly with all those he met and befriended. A life rich with the warmth of family, a family not bound by blood, but rather by lives shared. And though his life is ended, his life and legacy will continue in each and every one of us as Mike's family. Even as we are born, this marks the first day towards our end. As in life, all things will change. Even as Mike has encountered the greatest change we call death, we know in our hearts that the causes and conditions of Mike's life are still with us. So even though the body is gone, he is still with us, firmly etched in our hearts. Thus, when we lose someone we love, we must learn not to live without them, but to live with the love they left behind. At this time, I'd like to read the letter on white ashes, or Hakkotssho in Japanese. It's written by the 8th abbot of Honganji, the tradition I follow, and Susie and Mike. It was written in the mid-1400s because he had lost 3 family members within the course of about 2 years. So, as I read this, the last sentence is really dedicated toward my family, my religious path. But I would like you to insert your own spiritual understanding, your own spiritual path in that last sentence, for the rest of it is universal. Letters on white ashes. When I deeply contemplate the transient nature of human life, I realize that, from beginning to end, life is impermanent, like an illusion. We have not yet heard of anyone who lived 10,000 years. How fleeting is a lifetime? Who in this world can maintain a human form for even 100 years? There is no knowing whether I die first or others, whether death will occur today or tomorrow. We depart one after another more quickly than the dewdrops on the roots of the tips of the blades of grasses. So it is said, hence we may have radiant faces in the morning, but by evening we may turn into white ashes. Once the winds of impermanence have blown, our eyes are instantly closed and our breath stops forever. Then our radiant faces changes its color, and the attractive countenance, like peach and plum blossoms, is lost. Family and relatives will gather and grieve, but all to no avail. Since there is nothing else that can be done, they carry the deceased out to the fields. And then what is left after the body has been cremated and has turned into the midnight smoke is just white ashes. Words fail to describe the sadness of it all. Thus, the ephemeral nature of human existence is such that death comes to young and old alike, without discrimination. So we should all quickly take to the heart the matter of the greatest importance of the afterlife. Entrust ourselves deeply to Amida Buddha and recite the Nembutsu, humbly and respectfully. Thank you. At this time, we are asking all here to pick up a candle, and they'll be flanked on the left and right. Place it on the table in front of Mike's photo. At this time, we'd also like to have Susie and the family come and line up behind the table. Trying to get them to. If the family can you come over there and line up behind the table? Oh no, see, the reason, I'll explain it right here. The family will be behind the table and Susie. In the Japanese culture, rather than hug and shaking hands, at funerals, we give a simply bow in love and respect. Because so many of us older folks and the immunocompromised, we ask that you follow this tradition for today. You know, the ushers will guide each side to receive a candle and lead you to the table. So once we start from the front and going back, led by the ushers, after you place your candle and greet the family, please go straight to the reception hall. Thank you. Do you want to, are you ready? Okay. You know something? Yeah, before we go, let's empty out the pews up here. They'll give you a light coming down, and if you can put it on the table, that would be wonderful. Sure. I always do. Please do. Okay, thank you. I will. And while the folks are going down to place the candle, we should all give a great thank you to Elaine Yoko Takahashi. Quite frankly, I've worked with her for a long, long time, and she can get on your nerves, but she gets things done. Right, Yoko? But once the people have come down, placed their candles, then we will cue everybody through the ushers on the left and right. Just come right down once you're called. You know, I thank you for your patience. If you want to get up and stretch, please do. It's not easy sitting for as long as we have. You are the best. You know, I'd also like to thank my brethren right here, my brother, Pastor Lewis. We may not be sons of the same mother, but we certainly have the same spiritual path. So thank you very much. And again, once you're finished, go straight to the reception hall. Thank you.
It's a beautiful service. Beautiful service.
Yeah, I tell you something. It's really hard. I didn't really know Mike that well. Mostly, you know, through the SOS and events. But Susie has really been a backbreaker for helping. Oh,
she is a sweetheart.
No, you know, in spite of her own trouble.
Yeah, but she's a nicest lady. I mean, she's been sweet for 30 all the years I've met her. She's been nothing but nice.
I know, and you know something? For her to kind of like struggle like she has with the...
I don't think I've seen her upset at 8 at one time. And she was good with Mike. But she was good. You know, Mike was tough.
She's probably thinking, he's a good friend.
Yeah.
He's a great one.
He was able to handle him.
I'm just so glad that the people have, sat through the whole thing. But like I said, the reading that I did, the letters on my action.
This is a beautiful service. I'm going to take that to the Baptist church.
That's okay.
I'm going to take that to the Baptist church.
That's all right. Well, you know something, we're all human. And regardless of what we think and believe in, we're all the same.
We're going to take that to the Baptist church.
Wait, tell me, would you like a copy of my speech?
Yeah, I'll get a copy.
But like I said, one of the things that I always think about is, how, about the family as opposed to me. Too many, at least in the Buddhist temples, where they have funerals and things, but they don't really know who the person is. And the problem is that they don't bother to find out.
Well, they got off easy in there. The organ going.
Yeah.
I'd have these pipes going and everything. I'd have this whole...
Shit, I'd be singing music and dancing too, man.
I had those pipes going and everything.
Well, I mean, that's something that's quite a bit different than the Japanese. That's something I've always been
It is a real beautiful family. Like that's my style.
I really believe very strongly that the thing that was emphasized by each speaker, and again, I have no idea what they're going to say to anybody, but the theme of family just remains so deep. And like I said, I had no idea what I said was was all
but it was perfect. We all worked together. It went smooth.
But you know that